The Dying Light Iceberg. I always wondered what game would be the next Iceberg I'd cover, and due to me getting a lot of comments about this over time, and because Dying Light absolutely slaps, I figured now would be a good time to take a look at this succulent game series. We all know Dying Light, and we all know Iceberg charts, and it's one of those series that's perfect to get an Iceberg chart dedicated to it, detailing all of its trivia, Easter eggs, secrets, lore, facts, and talk about how wild these games are. So I took it upon myself to make one because I've scoured the internet like a nomad, trying to look for one that someone's made and posted, and that I could start researching, but I just couldn't find anything. So I said, fine, I'll do it myself. This is going to cover all of the Dying Light games, 1, 2, and the following, which the following isn't a standalone game, but it basically is. And if you find yourself enjoying this video at any point, hitting the like button will go a long way. Grab a drink or a snack as we take a deep dive into the Dying Light Iceberg. Kyle Crane. Look, it would have felt weird to have started our deep dive with literally anything other than this Giga Chad. Kyle Crane is the protagonist of the first game and the upcoming one, The Beast. He was an agent of the GRE, sent to retrieve a file that was stolen from them in the quarantine zone of Haran. This, however, ended up changing the guy for the better as he became more connected to the survivors and decided to aid in their struggles. This guy is to Dying Light what V is to Cyberpunk, one person that comes in and becomes a force of nature by the end, that can't be stopped, only feared. He became a combat, parkour, and survival expert, carrying Haran's survivors like a 1v5 ranked siege game, just when we thought he died at the end of the following. Turns out he's alive and somewhat well during The Beast, which as of right now, that game isn't out, so I couldn't tell you the rest. Haran Sports Contest. The place where the first game is set was supposed to have some kind of sports contest going on, just before the Haran virus ironically crossed the finish line first, leaving the place an infested, bloody mess. If you look around Haran for 5 minutes, you'll see more than enough of these posters advertising the upcoming event. If I have to look at this poster one more time in my playthrough, my eyes are probably going to jump out the sockets themselves because these are everywhere. Villador. Villador is the huge European-looking city that Dying Light 2 is set in, and we play in the more urban area of the place. Then heading into the centre of the city, just like the first game, we see a lot of the place and its inhabitants, including but not limited to, peacekeepers, zombies, and worst of all, the survivors. We'll cover that one soon though. It's probably the biggest city we'll see in a Dying Light game for now, at least, unless Dying Light 3 is ever a thing, with skyscrapers and large offices that tower over you in general, along with the GRE hospitals. And even the fast travel system is supposed to be going underneath the whole subway, and that's how Aiden would get around quickly, so it does a good job at showing the scale of this city. Dying Light tone shift. There was something about the way the first game presented itself, both tone and story-wise, that made it so grim. The game was bleak but oddly beautiful, watching the warm oranges of the sky and dulled colours blend together to make a striking and moving apocalypse that somehow still looked very impressive. And despite the game being a decade old, it holds up so well today. Which, you know, for how fast the gaming industry and the internet as a whole moves, that's basically ancient. An actual dinosaur era of time. I always loved how the sunrise and sunset would spread its colour all along Haran, as these two times of day were huge thematic presences in this cruel world, being people's only hope in the mornings, and as the sun would set and night would close in, their worst nightmare, as they would have to watch the only thing keeping the volatiles away fade over the horizon. Dying Light theme song mentioned? Sorry for my fluent Japanese, but I think you get what I'm saying. Then switch over to Dying Light 2. It's nothing like that, and I don't mean, oh, they only changed some of the graphics. No, this game looks, feels, and presents itself in complete opposition to the first game. Like a totally cool, rebellious 13-year-old trying their hardest to be different to how they were before. It's not just a phase. It was kind of a phase though, as Techland heard people's backlash about this and decided to make the game more gory, maybe to also rival Dead Island 2 at the time, and even added a filter to shift the colours of the game to resemble Dying Light 1's more gritty palette, and be much darker at night because for some reason it never felt like night in number 2, just the late evening without putting the filter on. It's not that Dying Light 2 looks bad by any means, it's just that it didn't feel like what fans fell in love with, and strayed too far from what made it so captivating. Volatiles. We all know these monstrosities. We fear them deeply. These fast, special types of zombies are the ones that the sun keeps off the streets due to their odd weakness to the sun rays burning their blood-red flesh. Their jaw splits into these ant-like jaw things. Look at those chompers. They're quite tall and have the build of a protein guzzling gym bro. And I've got to say, this is one of the scariest designs I've seen in the games I've played. They mutated this way due to staying in the dark for too long. Unless they were just hiding away and pumping iron and swallowing chickens whole. These bastards are going to be your biggest problem for most of these games. And pretty much your entire runs if you mainly play on nightmare mode like myself. Once the sun goes down, watch out for or just go to sleep like a normal person. Aiden Caldwell, the guy you'll be playing as in the second game. He's alright, nothing special. In fact, a lot of people call him a soy boy for reasons we'll get into. But this man can parkour like he's in an intense round of Hexagon. Aiden is a pilgrim, people that would run across the country to deliver messages and stuff. He, however, is looking for his sister Mia, who was held captive and experimented on by a mustache-twirling villain named Walls, who did the same to him a while back when he was a kid too, which explains how he can practically turn into a UFO for a while whilst jumping around. And it seems to have made him borderline superhuman due to the rigorous testing he underwent. He also briefly snaps into a vicious viral-like state, or this is due to him being bitten at the beginning of the game by a volatile and his symptoms of infection briefly spike up. GRE. The Global Relief Effort are a humanitarian organisation that was supposed to be veterans at pushing back against dangerous outbreaks and crises. Although this time, they did a bit of an oopsie, and it may have accidentally been spreading. Yeah, the Haran virus, they've been known to handle it in a much more sinister way. Are you telling me big corporation is bad? Yes, I am. I know, shocking revelation. They would give those struggling for their lives just enough antizin to keep them bottlenecked into a survivalist lifestyle. Throughout the first game, they were constantly asking Crane to not help any of them, or even give at least one fuck to the people of Haran, and only to focus on the file they needed. They deliberately took down the survivors' call to help, showing that there were people in the quarantine zone, tried to weaponize the zombie virus, and even created the second strain that we see in Dying Light 2. So they seem like stinky bad guys to me. Be the Zombie. What a game mode. This was the PvP solution to the series that tasked one player to take on the tendrils of the Night Hunter, an OP zombie, even stronger and more fierce than the volatiles that we cower from. You would invade other players and both would go at each other around the open world, as a game of cat and mouse would ensue, although it feels a bit unfair to call it that, because sometimes the Night Hunter is the one that gets hunted. This will go on until the human team runs out of lives, deeming them the loser, or the humans successfully manage to destroy all of the volatile nests, making the Night Hunter take the L. This could be either a terrifying experience or surprisingly funny, especially if you had the boys with you. If the Night Hunter you were up against was actually a good player, you would be quaking in your little runner shoes, and if it was bad, it would be honestly comical, as you and your other mates would be cornering this guy, slapping him with bats and slicing him with machetes, making him your bitch. Runners. The name of the riskiest job occupation in Haran. We see a nice little cinematic of a day on the job for these people in the Dying Light Good Night Good Luck trailer. The runners run and jump and climb to be able to effectively get around. This helps them get out of danger and be able to stay out of it. They scavenge resources to bring back, and by the time Dying Light 2 rolls around, those 22 years later, they're held as legends of the apocalypse. Kyle Crane himself becomes a runner for the tower and did such a good job, he made the rest of them look like pussies. Aiden getting punched. For some dumb reason, in Dying Light 2, there was a period of time where the game came out where in just about every cutscene, with Aiden talking to someone, it was almost some weird law of the world that it would end with him getting punched in the face. This wasn't only 1 or 2 times either. It was constant. Talking to some guy? Bam. Hugging Luan? Another one. Even the dashboard got one in, come on. He'd be talking to someone and then you'd see some guy's fist fly towards the screen and Aiden would recoil back like a Looney Tunes character on a banana peel. It didn't help that some of the punches were telegraphed a business day in advance with the same wind-up of a 1920s cartoon, and then Aiden got made another man's bitch boy. It got so out of hand that you can find tons of posts on forums about this and full compilations on YouTube, which I'll play one here of the madness. I guess he put all of his points in defense. and getting sucker punched. This only escalated further, and Techland actually addressed this, changing the way some of the cutscenes would end, with the pilgrim actually living up to his name and dodging some of them, instead of getting the testosterone slapped out of him. Ghazi. Ghazi is a strange guy. He seemed to have survived the initial Haran virus by some stroke of luck, as he doesn't go outside much. Maybe he was busy playing League or something. You meet him in one of the first side quests in the game. In fact, it might be the first one that you get pitched towards you, called Mother's Day, and I'm met with him refusing to give you antizin, which people desperately need back in the tower, because he's been saving it for his mother. Whilst talking to him, it becomes pretty clear that he's got some kind of mental disability. You do some running around for him, bringing him DVDs and chocolates that are now trivial from the outbreak, all to please his mum, because if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. At the end of the mission, you climb into Ghazi's place through the roof, since he won't let you in, and you finally see his mother. There's something weird about her, but I can't place my finger on it. Still though, what a fine woman all the same. We see Ghazi next to the world's best mother, as he crudely wrote on her chest, watching a static TV, which felt like some Candle Cove shit, bringing back memories. This gets even more baffling when you see that he's sat there completely content. We know nothing about Ghazi really, or what happened to him, making him one of the most notable and strangest encounters we've had in the series. Korek chest. Upon your adventures around the slums, you might see a little blue chest on a rooftop that can't be opened. But it can be opened by kicking it 50 times. Hey, don't complain, I'm sure your finger will hurt much less than Crane's foot probably does doing that.
Shit, okay.
Once it's done and popped open, it will reveal a blueprint for a Korek machete. The early game is gonna breeze through zombies, although it's quite expensive to craft, and in Nightmare mode, it can't be used at all. The description for it is no crazy Soulsborne item description, but it openly states how this is for the developer's ease of access when testing the game. Reading: developers like to cheat when playing their own games. Korek likes to have everything under control, and this is his tool. So it would seem like this was made by or for a tester named Korek. Grapple hook change. At around the midpoint of the first game, you'll eventually receive a grapple hook that straight up defies the laws of physics in a game that has surprisingly good ones. It was notoriously known to make the game way easier, to the point where the parkour side of it stopped feeling as urgent or rewarding. It was mainly to help get around the Old Town map, which had all the giant buildings, but it was undeniably way too good. Well, in Dying Light 2, it seemed like Techland listened to people's criticism and added the grappling hook back in the game. But they did change it. Whilst the previous one was comparable to a glorified wall magnet that you'd expect Lucius Fox to have made, the new one is more stripped back, being a rope and hook you have to throw out and swing around like a Tesco value Spider-Man, acting as a way to spice up and enhance the parkour by using it to bridge together certain leaps and landings instead of replacing most of the movement. Plus, the skill gap it created meant you had to learn to master it, to know when to use it and properly leverage it to zip around the city. Loot Bridge. This was a well-known spot in Dying Light 1 where you could basically turn to it to go from rags to riches at the start of the game. I don't know if anyone else called it the Loot Bridge, but me and my mates did. One would ask if the other wanted to go to the Loot Bridge, and of course, the other would respond with an eager, yeah, because it was one of the best loot runs in the game. If you didn't have the grappling hook or the Pizer suit, foreshadowing, you'd have your work cut out for you with having to push through a dense horde that can get you killed in seconds. And once you've done that, you've then got to climb to the top of the bridge and carefully, can't stress this bit enough, carefully is very slippy, walk down the supports that run down from the pillar. Once you get to the other side of the broken bridge, you'll be met with medical tents packed full of gauze, batteries, and other really useful crafting supplies, as well as a ton of medikits that you'll especially savour if you're on Nightmare mode. There's also a lineup of chests and police vans ready to be lockpicked for melee weapons, ammo, mods, and maybe even guns if you're lucky, like you just got to the bottom of a Skyrim dungeon. Taking a look at the place, it seems like people tried to get away desperately due to the outbreak and it collapsed, and the remaining people couldn't get across, which is how they met with this terrible fate. The medical tents and police vehicles were most likely a form of crowd control or to help fend off the infected. Paiza suit. The Paiza suit is a nice wink and nod to the Tanuki suit from Super Mario Bros. 3, a certified hood classic. In Old Town, you can find a small Mario-style pipe across the rooftops, and when you enter it, you're brought into a first-person perspective of a recreation of a Mario level. It's so cool. The Goombas are little zombies that you can squash and everything. Good times. At about halfway through the level, you can find the Paiza suit blueprint, which is pretty blurst. Like I said earlier, it's like the Tanuki suit, which is the animal suit of the same name that you can find in the Mario game. It lets you briefly glide around the level and has got to be one of my favourite power-ups in the series. Translated over to Dying Light, it's a similar thing, except you don't wear the skin of a Tanuki, you instead just get imbued with Red Bull or something, because Crane will awkwardly raise his arms up when used in midair, and you'll be gliding. The catch is, you still take fall damage if you use it for too long, pretty much insta-killing you in most cases. In fact, you can't really use this like a Breath of the Wild glider at all, or anything, without splatting on the floor like a Happy Wheels character. I think it was meant to be used more for closing gaps that you wouldn't be able to get to by only jumping, so it's a nice little traversal tool if used right. And believe me, you're gonna get it wrong a lot before you start using it right. Safe to say, it does take some getting used to. Also, this thing looks so fucking funny in co-op, it gets me every time.
Climb up as soon as I hit thingy.
Crane's collection. At the beginning of the game, we see Crane get given a bedroom in the tower, his own little space where you can change outfits and sleep. Ow! My headset just hit my shoulder. It was like my collarbone. Critical damage. Just a normal safe room, right? No. Most people know that throughout your time spent in Haran, as you experience more stories, do more quests, and discover more Easter eggs, Crane's room begins to change depending on what you've done and found, amassing a grand collection of trinkets and other little things around his room, like what Bully did, which I love so damn much. Crane notices discoveries of the special types of zombies he's drop-kicked back to hell, so that he can keep tabs on them. You can also see the wizard's hat from one of the side missions in Old Town, the meteor from the alien chicken Easter egg, which we'll cover soon, and loads more. The guy even ends up getting a bed, a noticeable upgrade from his homeless man mattress he had to sleep on at the beginning of the game. It gave such personality and character to not only Crane, but you as a player, being able to look back on all the stuff you've experienced, and I wish more games would do this. Adaptive music, a new feature that was added into Dying Light 2, where the original score of the game would kick in when you started going on a mad parkour spree, and would fine-tune itself to what you were doing, making it feel unique for your jumping trips across the map. It would get more or less intense with what you were doing, and even sync up to when you'd land, tickling that cinematic rhythm part of my brain whenever I do this. Hope to see this one return in the Beast. Take a listen for yourself. Duplication glitch. I mean, take your pick really. It felt like both Dying Light games, especially the first one, had tons of these that kept popping up like OnlyFans accounts in 2020. You'd always have that one guy on your friends list that is like max survivor rank and legend rank, and had about 15 of the same weapon, and knew all 4 playable maps inside and out, and offered to show you his forbidden ways. It is a great feeling using these duplication glitches, and I remember I did a few of these on some playthroughs, but ultimately, it obviously got kind of stale being so OP. Other playable characters. Co-op in the first game early on was always just a bunch of cranes goofing around and getting paid. Eventually though, 3 other characters got added in to create some variation for everyone playing. You can play as them too even in single player if you go on your stash and move to the Haran Fires tab. There's Dallin, Jern, and Khalil. Later down the line, you could also end up playing as other story characters like Raheem. Master Sword. Looking at my profile picture, you might get the impression that I'm a Legend of Zelda enjoyer. So Techland couldn't have put a reference to the series in their games without me noticing and exhaling out of my nose in satisfaction. There's a subtle nod to the beloved hero in Green's arsenal that's held by one of the children you meet in a side quest, taking on the general shape and appearance of the iconic Master Sword that's a staple in the series. You can see this displayed in Crane's room on his wall if you finish the quest, which is a nice touch. And the best part is that you can find a blueprint in the following that lets you craft the thing. Zelda lovers, fear not. Now we know how to fill out the wait for the next game. Crane in Dying Light 2. There are some references to our favourite construction equipment in Dying Light 2, which makes sense as Crane had such an impact during the events of the first game and its expansion that word naturally would spread because have you seen how much this guy got done in a day? You'll find a shipping crate that's basically a shrine for the guy, with children's drawings, voice lines on a radio that also include Jade and Raheem, and lots of pictures of him all around the room. It's such a nice moment when you come across this hidden gem, and it makes you reflect on all the events of the first game and its DLC. Oh, and of course, Ghazi reference, animals. One of the most noticeable yet paradoxical pieces of cut content we've seen from Dying Light 2. More specifically, one that was detailed to have contributed well in the loot pool and ecosystem of the game. On that one gameplay demo where they straight up showed the epilogue, aka the 2019 gameplay showcase, as you're being driven, there are multiple times where you can see deer passively walking around just off the side of the road, and even shortly after they're seen crossing the road in a pair. Techland weren't trying to hide it. If anything, they wanted to show it off here. So we know that they were meant to be in the game, but suddenly weren't. So the question is, what for? As I mentioned earlier, they were confirmed to serve this purpose by the devs themselves.
Fantastic. I saw actually, that's something people have been wondering, if there are animals in the game, and I did see during the demo there was some deer running around. Can we hunt these animals, use them for food, resources for crafting?
Just like you said.
Okay, awesome. We can hunt animals, people.
There you have it. Through what you just heard and the obvious attempt to show them off in gameplay showcases and be a major factor in the many components of gameplay like crafting and hunting, then it launched and they were nowhere to be seen. Fair viewer, quick warning. There are going to be many pieces of cut content about Dying Light 2 on this iceberg, and they'll make you sigh in pure depression as you say, oh, what could have been. There's something about Dying Light 2's cut content that stings a lot more than other games. Dancing zombies. There's a memorable Easter egg that you'll find yourself at one point by accident, or a mate will tell you about it. When wandering around the slums, you can see a warehouse, and if you flip a certain switch, this happens. I think the last thing anyone was expecting when flipping that switch was to get served by zombies. Giving off the same aura as the Killer Bean intro, I find it to be a good early game Easter egg you can show people to let them know there's a ton of hidden things in the series, and this is merely one of them. And quick disclaimer, this only works if you're doing a certain escort mission nearby. Colossal zombies. Don't get me wrong, you can look at the goons and demolishers and say with confidence that they are some chungus-sized infected. Well, much like American food, it somehow gets bigger. Around the following, there are instances where you'll come face to face with a special infected that ate some of those mushrooms from Mario or something, as they became mighty in size and strength. We've seen most special infected turn into these colossal-sized zombies, excluding the bomber and volatile. Even the viral and normal biter zombie get this treatment, being known as David and Goliath. But no great risk challenges you without great reward, as killing them gets you some decent loot. I have to imagine this happened from some huge mutation and strain from the virus. Pretty terrifying to think about actually. How big can they get? Virals were recently turned. Virals exhibit weird behaviour. Compared to most zombies, they seem more lively and move much more like normal people, not being as stiff yet limp as the normal zombies. Instead, they have actual properly functioning limbs, and they even don't look as decayed. This already makes sense. If these virals were recently turned, then they've had less time for the virus to set in and get to them. But the biggest tell is that they're trying their hardest to keep control of their bodies and even communicate with you sometimes. Some of them, when struck by the player, will manage to beg for mercy, flinching and cowering before you. And they're back to trying to eat you, as though you've got 3 Michelin stars attached to you. A poignant thing to notice for sure, but one that makes a lot of sense when thinking about how this virus wouldn't be able to turn someone into a shriveled up biter right away, all leading to the realization, just off of these in-game tells, that the virals were turned just before they ran into you. I'm gonna confidently speak for most Dying Light players here when I say that this simple detail is by far one of their favourites about these games. E3 demo changes. Oh, I got a new mic. I don't know if it's any good. Can you even tell? We'll find out if it's any good, I guess. So this entry irks me to no end. No game franchise has pulled a bigger bait and switch with their E3 demos like Dying Light has, both 1 and especially 2. There are a seemingly endless supply of changes that were originally shown to us that I can't say I recommend watching, because as good as both of these games are, they'll feel simply inferior to the game we have, and you won't be able to shake that feeling that you're playing a heavily nerfed version of them. Like I said, 1 doesn't suffer from this anywhere near as much as 2 does, and the majority of this comes from the warning I gave you earlier about how Dying Light 2 has a lot of cut content. A lot. There isn't enough time I could possibly have to go over all the changes seen on the demos, and for the second game, there are videos covering it, with a good one being Nick 930's direct comparison, that I'll show a bit of footage from here. To list a few changes from these games we've seen but are not limited to: a more gothic looking Villador, a denser city with more buildings, noticeably taller. Both games show different animations, some arguably better than what we got. Cut features like animals and the grappling hook physics, different combat such as the monkey bar kick, moving vehicles that can be jumped on, noticeable knock-on effects of your decisions like the survivor camp riots, and even this Peacekeeper public execution, overall looking more gritty, akin to Dying Light 1. Those cool glowing eyes that the biters had, not exactly like the 10,000 lumen headlight eyes, but instead a gentle glow that you can see well enough in the dark, and makes the infected look as though they're staring into the depths of your pitiful soul. Wall running in the Dying Light 1 gameplay trailer, I'll never forgive you, and so much more. This might be one of the most paradoxical rabbit holes to go down. It's a blast to explore, but immensely saddening at the same time. The amount of cut features and unfulfilled promises, and general whiplash of the final product at launch, needs to be studied. Black Monday tragedy. On the 6th of January 2025. In Dying Light's world, I keep forgetting we're actually in 2025, that's so weird. A disaster happened that would forever change Villador, birthing consequences that would plummet the city into the modern dark age we see in the game. Question: have you ever wondered why there's all that yellow stuff all over the place? Or why there's no electricity? Or even why the rooftops are all so lush? This is all because of the Black Monday incident. Our favourite evil scientist, the GRE, developed a vaccine for the Haran virus, and were wanting to push it out to as many people in Villador as possible, regardless of whether or not there were side effects that may or may not have been ironed out. In a 4D chess move, they decided to distribute this unstable vaccine out to the public in the form of huge gas bombs. Because what could ever go wrong with that? They pressed the big red button and dropped the vaccine. This went horribly, infecting or full-on turning anyone that breathed in enough of the yellow dust, except for those who were nimble enough to escape to the rooftops, or were luckily already up there. The only other option these people had amid the terrifying wall of yellow clouds was to get to UV light as quickly as they could. This tragedy killed 2 million people, according to a peacekeeper that can be heard in the game talking about it. Once the dust settled, the city was left a hollow, dark shell, completely withered and decayed, except for the rooftops, where nature managed to survive, as trees, dense grass and moss managed to cling to them just as much as the survivors do today. I think this might be one of the biggest fumbles of eternity, really. Haunted house, sitting abandoned and desolate in the fields of Haran's countryside, is a peculiar house. It's long past its day, but it's still willing to let you in, as when you arrive, the front door will already be open. If you are dumb enough to go in there like a scary movie character, then you'll be met with nothing. Nothing but a spooky atmosphere. You may hear some noises, but other than that, pretty desolate. Going upstairs, there's a door that's barricaded and locked, along with another just opposite it that's also locked, and the rest of the place has been trashed. By the way, don't forget your buggy paint job in the creepy abandoned room, but there's a mysterious room underneath the stairs, containing some valuable jewelry, herbs, some sort of dream catcher looking thing, some kind of effigy, and a witch's hat. Yeah, I think this is a Harry Potter reference. More interestingly, who was under here? What were they doing and why? There's a weird skull just on the shelf above, and after interacting with it a few times will cause it to spin out of control, and before you can even say zoinks, let's get out of here, Scoob, the doors violently slam shut, even locking themselves. Some scary sounds begin playing, and down the hall is a ghost. Presumably a bandit that met the same fate as you're about to, dying in this cursed house and coming back to life as a ghost or something. There's 2 in total that you'll need to kill. Also, how did a volatile get in here? And once you've busted up but the ghosts, the door to the attic will open, allowing you to exit. However, there's still that barricaded door. If you interact with it now, it will be unlocked too, as it swings open to reveal a girl sitting in a bloodied bathtub, dead, with blood trailing up the walls and red footprints mark the roof, implying that there is some kind of witchcraft going on that she was responsible for. How's that for a slice of Kino? It leaves you with just as many questions coming out than when you went in, bringing up all sorts of ideas and horrifying realizations about the supernatural and the dark arts of the Dying Light world. Survivor's mass dislike. One of the funnier entries here because of how ridiculous it feels. The Survivors faction in Dying Light 2 are one of the allies you can choose to side with, the other one being the Peacekeepers. There are many decisions you'll have to make with varying levels of impact on the story, although most are pretty minor. It's meant to be this moral debate. Do you help the people or the protectors? But despite that, most players made up their minds a while ago, despising the Survivors and siding with the Peacekeepers for a large majority of the game. This hate came in a mass wave, due to the downright psychotic way the survivors act towards you throughout a lot of the game. The first thing that set people off, including me, was that when they first met you, they tried to hang you immediately, without letting Aiden get so much as a word in, as they seemed to take great pleasure in executing a clearly confused guy in a horrible way. It's only because Hakon intervenes that you end up alive. The survivors also try to kill dogs and berate you for opposing it, use children as bait whilst they go off and farm crystals, and then they just speak to you like you're a piece of shit on their shoe for the majority of your time in Villador, despite how helpful Aiden actually is to them. Your first interaction with the Peacekeepers are stern, sure, but Aitor especially actually talks to you like a slightly cautious but normal, rational person. This idea kind of flips once you get to the central loop. The survivors there are chill, and the Peacekeepers are sociopathic, but they have actual motive to push people aside, whereas the survivors in Old Villador are downright monsters. And the worst part is, the game really wants you to like the survivors too. Nearly every quest for them feels like a pity party to try and pull on your heartstrings, but then they deploy their antisocial tactics and make me wonder how much grass they've actually touched in their life. With all of that on the table, it makes it hard to sympathise with them, and actively go against the PK when they're pulling shit like I listed off, and more for the first half of the game. There's an endless well of posts, videos and memes about the sheer bullshittery of the survivors. In fact, I bet my little cocktail sausage that if you ask one of your mates that's played all of the Dying Light 2 story what they think about the survivors, especially the Old Villador group, they'll most likely flame them like they're trying to commit arson. Sam B. Vinyl, during the Dying Light 2 prologue. Do you still remember that? I know you probably haven't played it since they let you skip it. If you're a Dead Island player, a franchise that Techland previously worked on, you may just find something that would have you salivating at your screen. A vinyl from the in-universe celebrity of Dead Island, Sam B, can be found with his hit song, Who Do You Voodoo? We see Sam B in the intro of the game performing the renowned song.
Who do you voodoo? Sounds familiar.
I've recently attempted to get this dialogue again, and for some reason it's been removed. Maybe it's a glitch, but as far as I can tell, it's not in the game now. How Brecken got his injury. The Good Night, Good Luck trailer came out and blew people's minds, and we can see how Brecken nearly got his mind blown out of the side of his head. He's a runner and was out on an expedition with his team. The mission was simple: get the airdrop and bring it back to the tower. As the trailer progresses and the bop Run Boy Run is aptly playing, all of his crew are getting picked off one by one, until Brecken makes it. The path towards the glorious red smoke was a brutal one, and good runners died to get here. But finally, Brecken can get the answers in and go home. Given the fact we see Brecken in the first game with the bandages wrapped around his head, we can assume that this was fairly recent, just before Crane arrived at the tower. Hands down one of the coolest details in the whole series for me. Crane learns guitar. Another similar detail to Crane's room changing is his skills in the acoustic. In his room, you'll find the guitar that, at first, playing it will be as simple as this. But you can hone your guitar playing skills by picking up a book, unsurprisingly called Learn the Guitar, in the mission where you and Jade sneak into the school. After grabbing the book, you can go back to your room and you'll get this result. Yes, he is playing the holy divine piece that is Horizon. George Romero tribute. After the death of George Romero, the creator of the zombie as we know them today in pop culture, Techland, being the Chad developers they are, added a memorial for him in the slums that you can go and find. It's a heartwarming Easter egg, and it's even sweeter knowing that they never had to do this, they just wanted to pay their respects to one of the most influential and inspiring filmmakers of all time. Elysium. One of my favourite entries on this list due to it being one of the biggest pieces of cut content in all of Dying Light history. And you guessed it, it's about number 2. The maps you can see show another section called Elysium. Given this is an iceberg chart, I've got to keep this fairly concise. But I can't let it be understated just how much content was centred around this. It's spoken about amongst Dying Light players like the Holy Grail. And to be fair, the speculation can get Monty Python levels of silly. But for the basics, Elysium was supposed to be one of the wealthiest parts in Villador, so the architecture would look considerably more fancier, and I'd have to guess Gothic too maybe? It was flaunted to us in the, say it with me, Dying Light 2 2018 E3 demo, as Aiden overlooks a large cathedral and some well-designed buildings that look straight out of the Middle Ages. It was a new region, brimming with potential, creativity, and aura. Unfortunately, Chris Avallone, the at the time lead writer of Dying Light 2, and the one behind a lot of the stuff we see in the first game, fell into some bad accusations around 2020 that, as far as I can tell, seemed to be proven false. Because of them, he was fired, which was also around about when they sent Elysium to the bin. So you could argue that a lot of the stuff that got cut from the 3 demos and change in direction for the popular sequel was due to his departure. Regardless, Elysium was one of the most exciting parts of this game for people, and considering so much got scrapped, all we can do is speculate about what could have been. If it's of any consolation, there was a Dying Light 2 cut content document made by the community that details a lot of stuff, with one of them being some of the stuff this awesome sounding region was supposed to hold. As mentioned, a lot got scrapped, leaving tons of speculation in the air, but what could be salvaged were 2 side quest scripts meant to take place there, 12 airdrop activities, 2 metro stations, 6 windmills, 2 water towers, a pumping station, the big cathedral we saw, a prison, and although this wasn't on the dock, I believe there was meant to be a military base there too. The problem is, this stuff could have been mixed in with other regions that were cut too, adding more fuel to this bonfire of mystique. Bozak. Hear that? The bomb on your ankle just activated. Are words that I never want to hear again. Just thinking about the Bozak horde makes my blood boil and my ears shoot out steam. Bozak is a guy that you can see on those posters if you bought the Bozak horde DLC. Paying for advertisements. How dystopian. I'll take my Reddit gold now, thank you, thank you. He has this recognizable hockey mask. No, not that guy, the other guy wearing the hockey mask. He kidnaps you and straps a bomb on your ankle, making you do a series of Mr. Beast challenges to fight your way to freedom, and get a sick ass bow. This took me a good few tries and was fun, but I never want to try it again because if I did, my brain cells would pack in. There's also a series of side missions where you can actually meet the guy in person, and he's just a normal bandit with a hockey mask, and the fight is pitiful.
My last combatant wouldn't fight after I lopped off his arm. Too easy.
Don't worry, Bozak. You're gonna get the fight you've earned.
That's the spirit. Now, fight me!
Hidden gun stash. One of the devs once replied to a post where a guy was asking them on Twitter about the fact that there were no guns in the game. He gave an interesting answer that scrambled the minds of the community for a while. We decided to focus on medieval ranged weapons, but there's a boomstick you can unlock later, check Craftmasters. There's also a quest that explains what happened to the guns, and that the army could have hidden some in a secret stash. Who knows? Maybe the stash will be uncovered. So the elephant in the room there is that Timon mentioned a hidden gun stash that the army may have stored weapons in. We know that originally at least, guns weren't supposed to be in the game due to the lore of it stating in short, they ran out of ammo and guns were confiscated by the military due to a massacre that happened on the 6th of March 2024, in which 64 people were shot down. That's right, the mischievous massacres don't stop at corrupt government organisations. So this lines up with what Timon said about the gun stash. stash, that they had to have them hidden away somewhere. Armed with this knowledge, players set out to find the hidden gun stash, with some thinking that it could come in an update, and others channeling their inner COD Zombies demon to search every nook and cranny of Villador, with videos and forums showing up everywhere. And eventually, we finally did get access to those guns, but not in some niche, obscure Easter egg. It was actually just straight up a side quest that was added into the game, where you and an NPC called Jay, who ends up being a trader for guns, hunt down the elusive stash. Dancing Goon. In 2025, it just sounds so weird to say. So don't worry, no one is whacking their willy whilst pirouetting around. We're talking about another dancing zombie. This time, it's one of the bigger fellas. In Dying Light 2, you can see a football net and a ball. If you score yourself enough points, you'll not only get a cool katana, but also a... Why can I not say that word anymore? God damn it. But also, a goon will poof into existence giving you a dance. New Fortnite emote when? After breaking it down something fierce, he'll try to kill you. Probably so he can dance on your grave as well. It's honestly great to see Techland keeping up this trend of dancing zombies, and I hope we have another disco session in the Beast. The following canon ending. The following has multiple endings ranging from mercifully sad, to mercifully sad but alone, to just sad. And because of this, one of the most infamous debates in the whole franchise bloomed. Which one of these vastly different endings is canon? Is it to accept the mother's offer and destroy everyone in Haran? Or is it to fight against her and get the vials back to your friends and turn into what seems to be the Night Hunter whilst trying? No one knew. Until the Beast was announced, showing us that Crane came back with the Antizin after 20 years, looking older but still as strong. No, even stronger than before, as it looks like he can unleash his powers as the Beast, which to me confirms that he did in fact end up turning into the Night Hunter, or a volatile during the ending where he defies the Mother. I'm sure this video is going to come out either just before the Beast releases, or just after, so I think eventually we're going to have a clearer picture, and I'm sure parts of this video will be outdated, so if you're watching this post Beast, feel free to add in some insight. Companion app. This one takes me back to when I'd be checking this little thing on my shitty little Samsung back in secondary school. The Companion app allowed you to link it up with your Dying Light save and send out runners on missions, in which they'd scavenge for supplies and weapons, bringing them back to you so the next time you hopped on the game, you can reap the rewards your efforts of tapping a phone screen have yielded. Sometimes the survivors could die on their runs, especially if you weren't careful enough when assigning who goes where, since some of your squad may be better on more combat focused missions, and others parkour. This app was pretty neat, to be honest. I don't think there was any reason it needed to get shut down, but it did anyway. We still talk about you, Dying Light companion app. My Apocalypse Edition. A bucket of ice cold water, a firm slap to the face, and another GTA 6 delay could not snap me back to reality after hearing what this entailed. My Apocalypse was an edition of Dying Light that gave you the game ×4 with steelbook cases that are signed. Well, that is crazy, but surely there's more. You could say that. Investors of this edition also received 2 Razer Tiamat? Is that Tiamat headphones. I guess that means only 2 of the boys can have voice chat. The other 2 guys were annoying anyway, right? Your face put on your Night Hunter, a human-sized volatile statue, branded night vision goggles with adult diapers for when nighttime makes you inevitably shit bricks. Where were these when I needed them most in my Lethal Company runs? No, fuck this. Fuck. Oh my god, that is an actual mech. Oh my god. Zombie survival parkour lessons. A trip to Techland, in which you partake in a rigged match of Be the Zombie to win bragging rights to the lads. And a custom-built zombie-proof shelter. You literally get your own property. Now, of course, this is mad expensive, like £250,000 expensive. You might be wondering if this is some epic Joey Salads prank, but from everything I've seen when researching it, I don't think it is. Although it's safe to assume that Techland weren't expecting anyone to actually slam their couch-sized wallet in front of them and go through with it. But it seems like they were preparing for it, just in case. So was it real? I'd say so. Was it unlikely? You bet. I could only imagine how sick this would have all looked if someone took one for the team and broke bank. Alien chickens. Do you believe in aliens? If you don't, you probably still won't after hearing about this, because I have no idea what this actually is supposed to be after all these years. The following gives you some puzzle pieces whilst running around, and eventually solving what might as well be a COD Zombies Easter egg. Around the countryside there are 16 strange meteor fragments that you need to find, tucked away between foliage, hidden in caves, underwater, and everywhere in between. Once finding them all, if you go to a specific house just next to a safe zone, a confusing and slightly unnerving drawing can be found that looks like some kind of diagram or symbol hidden in the attic, looking a bit like the Mount Chiliad drawings, and these can be interacted with, placing the meteor rocks on it. This has to be done at night, and this is the conclusion.
Doctor, Mr. Doctor. Doctor.
Hello, mister. Wow, hello. What you got inside? Yes, hello.
Doctor.
What? I think some questions really don't have an answer, and at this point, I'll assume that this was some big joke by the devs, setting up some sort of alien mystery, only for it to go nowhere and be goofy alien chickens on sticks. The thing is, it also does actually summon a UFO that abducts you, and those meteor rocks are kinda strange, so aliens confirmed. I think. No idea if there is really anything more to it, but I'm leaning more towards the devs being in a silly, quirky mood. And as far as alien abductions go, I'd say we got off lucky that the sticks were in front of us. After they drop you back off, they zoom away and you're given a whimsical alien gun. Ghost NPCs. We've learned about aliens, so now let's look at the supernatural. There's a glitch that was encountered by Reddit user York Who Cheese. To be fair, I've heard weirder names, like much weirder. This one gets a pass, where they're on their way to grab an airdrop, and are overlooking Riser's bandits, who begin walking towards a wall, and seemingly phase through it, disappearing completely. I watched this a few times, and it seems like they not only made it through the wall, but despawned shortly after. This is a glitch that could very well still be in the game and would definitely catch someone off guard if they see it for the first time, making you tilt your head in confusion. And it's funny to imagine these are the same guys we met in the cursed house a few entries ago. I'm curious, if this glitch has ever happened to you, then let me know. We can get some Dying Light ghost stories in the comments. No gas stations in Dying Light 2. This has got to be one of the strangest observations I've ever found in Dying Light 2, because when this cursed knowledge is pointed out to you, it will stick. As the entry states, yeah, there are no gas stations in this game. You would think that there are in a city as large and renowned as Villador, but no. It's all just tall office buildings and housing with the occasional church and subway. But it goes further than just gas stations. Turns out there are no police stations, fire stations, schools, or parking lots, which just about every city should have. Ever since finding this out, it's made Villador feel really surreal, and I can't not notice it when jumping around the place. Grapple hook yank mechanic. I mentioned this earlier when talking about the old E3 demos and trailers, and I wanted to talk more about it considering its infamy of being niche but cool. As we see, Aiden managed to use the grapple hook to tug at the barrel and put this guy in a vegetative state. This man needs milk and paracetamol ASAP, but DL2 arrived to us and this was never in the package. I think this would have added a nice tint of dynamism to the brawls you're getting, but what if I told you it's not completely removed from the game? There's a little little park with a roundabout you can find in the central loop. Going up to it, you can yank it with the grapple hook to start getting some motion going, and when you jump on it, you can make your head go all swirly. Volatile nest meeting. There's an eyebrow raising Easter egg tucked away in Dying Light 1. Entering a particular tunnel, you may find yourself looking through a door window into a volatile nest, with what looks to be some sort of leader volatile rallying or communicating with others like it. This implies that there might be some kind of hierarchy to these blood-stained monsters. It's not a far reach at all. They build nests, and we do see that there's apex volatiles in the following that are stronger than the normal ones, and they have natural cycles of going into the volatile hive to rest and coming out to hunt for food. It's all very creature-like, and with that logic, what's so odd about them having a leader of the nest? A queen bee of sorts. They're having a meeting about something regardless, and that guy up there leading the charge has worked his way from level 1 crook to level 99 mafia boss. I'll give him credit where it's due, they've got it more figured out than the humans have. When you try to open the door, one of the volatiles lunges towards it, beating on it to try and tear Crane up. You already know that this volatile is the unpaid intern dying to get out of the board meeting.
Let me in! Let me in!
Aiden loses hand. Burying my hand deep into the pit of Dying Light 2 cut content, I pulled this one out of the hat, and it stands out because of how ambitious this really was. In a scrapped quest to track down a thief, Aiden is given a choice to lose his hand in place for the thief, beginning his rise arc, or not to, which I think would then result in the thief getting his hand cut off. The result is Aiden parkouring about and swinging sharpened road signs with only one arm. This is clearly one of those major impact decisions that Techland were wanting to put in their game, and lines up much closer to what was promised in the E3 trailers and demos. Seeing Aiden do all this with only one hand looks badass. I would have loved to have seen how this would affect gameplay though. Like, maybe you would level up parkour faster given how he has to rely on one arm to do all the work, but decrease combat XP because of him not being able to fight properly or something. Would parkour be slower? Would various characters judge you as a thief for losing your hand? What about using two-handed weapons and gadgets? Because of his super cool mutant zombie powers, would his missing hand be like Thing from the Addams Family? I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there, but it's clearly a lot to think about, which is most likely why this never made it into the game. Combined with it being in development hell, crippling the team too. You've got to hand it to him though for at least attempting the idea. And you've left, haven't you? They always leave. Mysterious checkers game. On the roof of the tower is a checkers board that can be interacted with. You start by moving one of the pieces, beginning the game. When you leave the tower and come back, you'll notice someone has moved an opposing piece. Except we never get to see who or what is doing this, turning it into a fun little mystery. If you do this enough times and finish the game, you'll get a blueprint to craft a sick bomb. It costs 30 underwater algae and 1 alcohol, and when hurled at biters, it makes them fart and fly around. Comedy peaked here, and never again since. Factions. Black Ops 4 players probably had flashbacks there. Open wide though, more Dying Light 2 cut content incoming, and a lot of it at that. There were cut factions, which is fairly well known trivia, so what are they doing down here? To me it's such a wide topic that houses so much detail about these groups that leads to so many rabbit holes you could go down speculating about their place in this game. It's some of the more fleshed out content that I imagine had much more going on than what we know. These could be broken down into separate entries if there's ever a second Iceberg video I make on this. To keep it nice and concise for now, for a quick rundown at some of what we missed out on. The Hunters, a group that we know little about, and once had a village. I'll guess these are your bow and arrow, stealthy sort that live off the land with precision and sharp wits. The Vikings, this faction was supposed to be in the central loop and were involved in multiple removed or modified quests, with only a few assets of their existence left. Little is known about who they really are. Monks, seemingly an enemy of the peacekeepers and scavengers. There was a cut quest where Aiden was supposed to kill this group for them. They bunkered down in an Elysium prison. The Watchers, a faction that formed with the goal of protecting the quarantine wall around the city, and was supposed to appear in the prologue and epilogue of the game, using searchlights to spot potential intruders. The Vampires. Considered as more of a cult among survivors, the vampires lurked in the subway tunnels with unstated motives, although we do know that they had a hatred for the PK, and would even capture them as hostages. Goddamn vampires, chill. And the Untainted, a group of bandits that believe salvation can be found by, to quote the unofficial cut content doc. Getting out of your head. They would grow drugs and sell them to Aiden, which I'm guessing would act as like buffs. The faction fell just short of making it into the final game, with them showing up in the, yep, I'm saying it again, E3 2018 trailer. And believe it or not, there are somehow way more factions that were planned. But we'll be here way too long if we go all the way into this, and would honestly require its own video or something. From the examples I've listed though, it should be clear to see how much time and effort went into crafting their world. Unfortunately though, I think we'll be playing Dying Light 3 on the PC too by the time we see any of these factions implemented. Dead Girl in Water. Attention all 4 girls that watch this channel, one of which is my mum, so I guess we'll not count that one. Get cozy and sip your Starbucks, because we've got a story that'll indulge your murder documentary craze. At the bottom of a cliff in the slums, a dead woman floats atop the waves. No traces of her identity can be found, but there is some strong evidence that it's her. In fact, to me, it's all but confirmed. And with what you'll see here, I don't think you'll need confirmation from Techland. So, at this cliff edge, there's a blanket spread out, and on top, a book, a water bottle, jeans, a shirt, and trainers, which have all been left out to enjoy a tranquil day watching the world go by. And that's it. This is our crime scene, if that's what you want to call it. I looked all over for anything about this, and after enough digging to declare my office as an excavation site, here's what I discovered. A Reddit comment, which tends to be standard procedure for researching niche things. Someone brings up this waterbound girl, mentioning that they saw her at the bazaar. The bazaar? This couldn't have been about number 2, this post was 8 years ago, so from where I'm standing, this is bizarre. I located it at this random safe zone not too far from the cliff that is in fact called the Black Serpent Bazaar. I went here on a few of my saves, one at the start of the game, one slightly under the halfway point, and another one after beating the story. This elusive NPC was absent all 3 times, meaning it's a random encounter that luckily I managed to find an old clip on YouTube of. We find out her name is Gerritsen, and here's what she has to say.
Radio signal is stronger than ever before.
You get to work with her, don't you?
I'm sorry? Work with who?
Jade Aldemir, the Scorpion? God, she is so awesome. She's the whole reason why I came to Haran.
You came here to see Jade?
Wow, you're on a first-name basis with her? I would just die. Wow. But yeah, she was supposed to compete in the global games, you know?
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Good to see you in one
Yeah,
piece.
she is such an amazing kickboxer. People used to say she was like the female Chun-Li. She's the reason I started training, you know? I wanted to be just like her. And then my dad got me and my sister tickets to the game for my graduation present. And we came here and my sister. Right after all the sirens started going off and the soldiers showed up in the streets. We were trying to get to a safe spot and she tripped and fell. I didn't realize it for a few seconds. I kept running, and she didn't make a sound because it knocked the wind out of her. And then I realized she wasn't with me and turned around. They were all over her. I couldn't even see her for all the fighters. But I've been thinking to myself ever since then, how would the Scorpion handle this? And I've been trying to be brave. When you see her again, would you tell her? One of her biggest fans says hi.
I will, definitely.
So she's a Jade simp. Join the queue, buddy. Being a fan of her and going to watch her compete in the Haran Games, her plans were put to a bloody end when, as stated, her sister died in front of her, and this is where she's been taking refuge. Gerritsen looks identical to the girl that's in the water, so just from a looks basis, it checks out. Maybe they just reused the model, right? And I'll give a big enough maybe to make the ink spots proud. However, none of this explains how, let's assume this is Gerritsen, she ended up at the bottom of that cliff. So here's my 2 cents. Gerritsen tragically lost her sister when they were going to see Jade Aldemir at the Haran Games. She ended up at the bazaar and was racked with grief. Jade was more than someone she admired. She was someone she looked up to when times were toughest. When we meet her, she's telling us that she still has some hope. But grief isn't just a feeling, it's a process. And one that Gerritsen was collapsing under the weight of. Losing her sister, not knowing what each day will hold for her in the quarantine zone. So she decides to go for the cliffside for a while, packing her blanket, water, and journal with no intention of returning. Having one last look at some of the only peace and quiet in the quarantine zone, Gerritsen gave up. She tried to be brave, but ultimately couldn't, and was consumed by her grief and despair, and finally, the waves. Or, this isn't her. Considering there's no concrete timeline in game for Gerritsen's events, you could see a dead body first and then see her trauma dump into you in the bazaar. So they could easily be different people, although I believe not supposed to be in some linear order, just some world building if you happen to find the other half of the story first. Like in Universe, it was supposed to play out as meet Gerritsen, then find her dead, and put 2 and 2 together. I'm still in the she's defo Gerritsen that deliberately jumped off camp. You could believe that none of this is related to, which is fair. Gerritsen or not, there's another angle to this. Was it an accident? Did she slip or roll off? Was it with intent to die? Although Dying Light 1 especially is dark in every sense of the word, like character deaths and morbid environmental storytelling, it can also have some downright slapstick moments like alien chickens and that stupid crane on a crane joke.
Want to feel right at home? A crane on a crane.
So once again, it can go either way. She might have played into Natural Selection's hand by choosing to jump off here not as a ploy to give up on life, but instead to go cliff diving. Even I'd never be that stupid unless there's a haystack at the bottom. Duh. Whatever you think, it's strange and grim. 2 things that can make mysteries like these so intriguing. Personally, there's more than enough reason to suggest it's Gerritsen that caved in this dark world and went on her own terms. Zombies raise in hand. There's a rare chance in the first Dying Light that a shambler looks at you, and before you charge up a dropkick big enough to knock the virus out of them, they'll raise their hand at you, almost like a desperate attempt to gently feel you, or it can be taken as a wave or friendly signal. I don't know, it's definitely a strange gesture that you might never see, but if you do, it might leave you a little stunned before you inevitably crush the head. Let me know in the comments what you think about this one. As brain dead as the biters are in Dying Light, for some reason this doesn't seem very straightforward. Secret outfit buffs. There's a belief that all the outfits in Dying Light 1 are there to serve as cosmetics and nothing more, but that's not actually the case. Some of these buffs are stated briefly in the store, but never seem to be in game, or are not stated anywhere at all, leading them to feel surprisingly obscure, such as the ninja and chicken outfits, making your footsteps sound quieter, letting you hear clearer, although this doesn't make you any less detectable. The 1337 gamer applying a saturation filter, Van Crane giving you a boomerang effect when you throw any weapon that's not a heavy, the winter outfit giving you 20% more XP, and the V9 defender suit reducing fall damage. Not all of them have these buffs, but some do, and it's pretty interesting. Invisible dart enemy. During the prologue, Aiden tries to run across a metal platform just for it to collapse, sending him into some water. You're not supposed to reach the other side, but if you do, something strange and kinda spooky will happen. From the other side, these little green darts will begin being shot at you from the darkness, but reaching the source of them gives you nothing. There's just some invisible thing shooting these darts at you constantly, all except for a dark, shadowy thing, which could be related to it. It can kill other enemies too, but will always target Aiden. I have no clue what this is. Maybe a glitched bandit? But why these little dart / arrow projectiles? And why in this specific part of the game? Unfortunately, the trail ends there. No concrete answer, but if you'll indulge me, I think the invisible dart enemy being in the prologue and up here in the mysterious state it is, was part of something that was scrapped. Like potentially a Hunter's faction member, or something along those lines, and the prologue was supposed to have something more in this specific bit and was changed at some point. Keep in mind that so much was removed, changed, and completely reworked. Who knows how many times they could have easily had something else in mind for this prologue and had to ditch it, leaving these digital fossils behind here for people to dig up. Hashtag drink right Dying Light. This was such an obscure thing to come from Dying Light that wouldn't make any sense unless you have the context. The best way I can put it is like the devs letting players in on an inside joke, but we only get one side of it. Let me give you the missing context and we'll take it from there. This beef started 10 years ago, me realizing 2015 was a decade ago, when across no man's land, at the other side of the trench, our favourite studio Activision decided to make a campaign for Destiny, partnering up with everyone's favourite radioactive water brand, Red Bull. If you bought the Destiny cans, you got access to a special mission and other little bonuses. You'd see people posting pictures of their energy drinks, pushing this even further. It seems like our allied force, Techland, found this to be ludicrous, and most likely thought about the health concerns, so they decided to take the absolute piss out of them by tweeting out, "We're jumping on the latest trend in game marketing. Hashtag drink right Dying Light, hashtag drink for DLC." The image posted was a perfect parody of the Destiny campaign, replacing it with the All-Father of beverages. Water! Doing this was a real power move, basically saying to Activision, go ahead and log off for me. In the tweet, they proceeded to give people that posted pictures of them drinking water a free docket, and push this joke even further by making a mission, where Crane has to mess with some valves to restore water back to Old Town, where he drops the Moab Techland farmed.
You did my job and you did it well. Even the fountain worked again. Amazing, Crane.
Good. It's better to drink water than energy drinks.
Then, if you go to a fountain, you can interact with it to scoop some water out of it, slurp it down, and take a selfie. The final shot fired. Remember to stay hydrated. This is certified water propaganda. Player reflection. We can catch a glimpse of Crane's Mew-maxed face by looking at the right angle of certain blades, being able to see his reflection in it. Very visually impressive for absolutely no reason. They didn't need to throw that in the game, but they did. I respect that. Sometimes it's the small things. Heavy kicks. I'm gonna need more intelligence points under my belt to properly explain this, but I'll give it an old college try. In DL1, you can power up your kicks to have much more impact and output damage, like your legs are made of steel beams, throwing zombies into fences like you're Randy Savage. Closet Pankin explains this concept way better in a video he made about the topic. The difference between the heavy kick and the normal kick is that the light does a flat 7 damage, whereas the heavy manipulates the game's physics to kick the zombie so hard with the momentum that they ragdoll, and ragdoll damage adds up in percentage as opposed to a flat rate, meaning that they take significantly more damage. To be honest, it's kinda like real life. If you were to be kicked with a little wind up, it will hurt. If you got kicked by a Viltrumite charging at you, building up momentum, it's gonna hit a lot harder and hurt a lot more. I guess think of it as a spring that you're winding back, letting your strafing add up, then releasing the spring as it hits hard and fast. Moving forward and kicking the biter will stagger it sometimes, but if you move forward and sideways, then boot it, that momentum is built up from the movement and burst into the zombie's face. It's one of the craziest ways you can master combat in Dying Light with niche little maneuvers like the holy heavy kick. Omni sliding. And here's another movement technique. World record holder of the Bozak Horde, Aussie GG, didn't achieve that feat for no reason. He used many great plays and techniques, with one of them being the sideways slide he does here. I've also seen this done in the Night Hunter Pro Leagues too. This maneuver takes advantage of the strafing to propel you and can lead to some slick dodges and jumps, and it can be done sideways or backwards. Red ducks. Around Villador we can see red ducks. Not yellow or white, no. Red rubber ducks with glowing eyes. These little demons are hidden in some obscure nooks and crannies that doing this without a guide would be a long process, but take comfort in knowing that they are all located in safes. From what I can tell, the conclusion to this took about a month to get to, which for a game mystery, that's a long time, and posts can be seen speculating the meaning behind these rubber rascals. After sticking your head in all 7 safes, you'll gain access to a parkour challenge that lets you ride a bicycle. Although you don't get to keep it or anything unless you glitch it out of the challenge by exiting or dying, which I'll be honest is a little disappointing, but it's all good fun regardless. Aiden's parents. Digging deeper into the 2019 build of the game, there's a story synopsis that was constructed through all of the cut content this game is drowning in. And wow, was this a completely different experience. But I wanted to focus specifically on something that was supposed to be a prevalent part of the story during its prologue and epilogue, which is Aiden's parents, where the only mention we get about them is the Veronica mission, where he says that he never knew them.
The main computer is there. You'll finally know what happened to your sister.
She's all I have.
What about your parents?
I don't remember them. Just her.
Going in complete opposition to this, I can't even say this is the original story. I can only imagine what we're going to cover is one of many rewrites the game went through. So, in this 2019 synopsis, the prologue has Aiden meeting his mother and father in the village centre. Both were experienced survivors, well versed in parkour. Aiden and his dad go out looking for a missing person, and while on this expedition, he falls through the floor into a room full of virals, his dad catching up to him as they slash and bash the threats away and flee back to the village. During the heat, Aiden was bitten, and because of that nasty bite, he's denied entry back there by the chief. With him, his father and mother at an abandoned rundown bridge, with the setting sun sinking below them. His dad is talking to someone over the radio who's not revealed. The whole conversation is confusing, and shortly after, he puts a biomarker on Aiden's wrist, telling him, "Don't forget who you are. where you come from, before pushing him off the bridge into the river. What's even more interesting is that his mother was also supposed to be another big role in the story too, going on to appear in the epilogue too for some unknown reason. All we can do is take a guess and theorize about what Aiden's parents were like, who they truly were, and what significance they actually had to the old plot of this elusive game. As it stands, this is the most we know. An athletic mother and a father that pushes his son off of a bridge with some fast and furious ass quotes. On the Dying Light wiki for Aiden Caldwell, we see a reference to this quote saying he knew his parents, but we know that's wrong as it never made it in, and the final product told us otherwise. It's hard to fathom that this whole idea was scrapped, and other than what I just read, I don't think we'll ever know much more about this couple. Airship. There was an entire airship that got removed from Dying Light 2 that was supposed to have multiple missions involving it, in places like the Sunken City. In one of these, Aiden would get a lift in it, which is where he'd then be given his paraglider, and another where it would get destroyed, and there's this model that's been recovered of it here where it's not fully textured, but it's clearly supposed to be beaten up and is covered in that infamous yellow dust we learned of during Black Monday. And it's also worth noting that there's a memento that you can find just at the top of the fisheye, and it's a pamphlet advertising an airship that can fly over Villador. If you'll allow me to go full tinfoil hat mode here, which you should because we're at the bottom of the iceberg, I wouldn't be too surprised if we ever learned that this specific memento wasn't actually just some collectible at first and was instead meant to play a larger part in tracking down this mission or something. Having a blimp this big and multiple quests attached to it all be removed is a tremendous L, and seeing the leftover model makes me imagine how imposing and interesting its implementation would have been. Magic in Dying Light. We've briefly touched upon this in the Haunted House entry, but I think from this it creates a deeper question about the Dying Light universe, and we have to question whether or not voodoo or some force of magic exists in it. The supernatural do, of course, we see them, and we can't forget about them crafty ghost NPCs. The cause, however, I believe, has got to be voodoo of some kind. A lot of how voodoo is described is the use of rituals and trances to communicate with spirits. From everything we see around Haran, especially its countryside, it begs the question, how much is this magic used and how prevalent is it? Whether it be voodoo or witchcraft. It could be either one of these, I'm not really 100% sure, maybe both exist. Or if there is any magic going on in Dying Light, it could be this weird blend between both maybe, which I think honestly is what I'm more leaning towards. Was this a one-off type of deal? In a side quest we can meet a self-proclaimed witch using a voodoo doll with lots of ritualistic looking pieces in her room, and claims that she can craft potions that will help Crane walk amongst the zombies. She then tells him that he's under her control whether he realizes it or not, so she knows that he'll always be back to do her quests. And sure enough, if completing every side quest is canon to the game, he does go back. Was that really the case? Did she do some sort of voodoo magic? Hell, the mother manages to communicate with Crane telepathically. Need I say more? And I am aware that the game kind of touches on the telepathy being a mutation, but I don't know, there's just too many things in this game that feel almost fantastical and magical. Questions like these can pop up a few times in the series and are worth thinking about. Spotlight Edition. Oh my sweet child, you thought we were done with strange wallet busting editions of this game? There's another. One which there isn't much info floating around on this time, unlike its more well-known counterpart. This was for Dying Light the following Enhanced Edition, and the lucky buyer would receive 4 signed copies of Dying Light Enhanced Edition. Not falling for this one again, where's the crazy shit? An original copy of the script, signed by the cast. An off-road driving course where you get to keep the car. Professional stuntman / parkour training. An FX makeup session to make you into a zombie. Professional acting lessons from John Dying Light himself, Roger Craig Smith, which is weird because why are they giving you acting lessons? Well, that's because you can use them acting skills in a special edition of the game where you become the voice of Crane, but you'll also need them for the main part of the package. A supporting role involving an action scene and speaking role in Dying Light the movie. For this, you'll also receive receive a personal trailer on set with a screening tour with first class accommodation and flights, and also 10 VIP tickets for opening night where you can bring your family and friends. Although if you can drop $10 million on this edition, I think free tickets are the least of your problems. All of this to put you on the silver screen, hence the name Spotlight Edition. Once again, I'm sure no one was ever actually gonna buy this, so Techland threw it out half joking for some sweet delectable PR. But much like the My Apocalypse edition, I imagine that they at least had some sort of precautions put in place, just in case some mad lad actually did. A large chunk of that $10 million would probably be used to jumpstart the film into production and get things off the ground. Lonely zombie. Lurking on an isolated road in Villador is a lone zombie, and the sense of confusion that comes along with it. I went to investigate this myself and didn't see him here, but on Mango Choi's clip here, the zombie appears out of nowhere like he's just been given admin powers for the first time. When it's led down the path, it randomly stops, like there's an invisible wall or something blocking its way to a tasty treat. It also seems to get one-tapped by just about anything, way weaker than your average Zed. The closest I've seen to this is a single zombie not too far from it that had a normal amount of health and did walk a little funny. Like, it didn't put up a great effort to catch my cheeks, but also wasn't the model we see and isn't locked in some invisible cage, so I don't think it's related. But after saving and quitting the game like twice, I still saw this zombie here, so I don't know, I just thought I'd add it in there. It's definitely weird, but probably nothing, and most likely not related to this invisible zombie. That, however, might be a persistent glitch that got patched out of the game. However, I don't think it would be wrong to say that our gross friend here was some sort of dev test, hidden in a secluded area of the map so they can come here to check how their weapons, collision, zombies animations, and ragdoll physics might act in a more controlled area. Female zombies I can't read this. Female zombies have textured genitals. Fellas, let's not shoot the messenger first and foremost. I'm dead ass serious right now. I can't show it for obvious reasons. I'm sticking my neck out here just talking about it. But as the entry unfortunately states, yes, there is textured zommussy in Dying Light 1. I don't know why, I don't know how. Maybe it's simply some textures that got used that were already like that, but someone posted their findings in a Steam community post, and it's some of the most cursed information that I have to carry with me during my day-to-day life. Sleep tight. This may very well seem like a dude trust me situation, but keeping it at that is me throwing you a lifeline. Dying Light... God, I'm sorry, I just can't believe I just talked about that, and then we're just going on to this, the whiplash, guys. Dying Light 2 hidden mechanics. I don't know what it is with Dying Light 2, but there are so many weird little hidden mechanics that you can use to your advantage and change how you interact with things completely. There's feinting attacks, using a grapple hook to boost you off the ground, allowing for a paraglider follow-up, using a UV flare to escape a grab. The monkey bar kick that I mentioned got left out actually is in the game. Also, so is the grapple hook yank mechanic. Although still not fully realized like we saw, you can utilize it to grab these gas canisters when it's fully upgraded. There's a paraglider and grappling hook kick. You can carry this over to parkour for a smooth swing off a ledge when descending. Rolling, which, I'll be honest, is completely pointless. Maybe Techland just liked Limp Bizkit. Being able to bash open locked doors. This smooth load-busting wall run kick, and using a paraglider kick mid-air to gain a nice speed boost. And the billboard slide. And probably a bunch more that you'll most likely never discover until you're well over 150 plus hours into the game or something, and you accidentally misinput something on your controller or fat finger a key. Check this area. In an abandoned building at the very bottom of Old Villador, there's a specific room that you can get into that has some prep going on for something we don't quite know the specifics of. However, looking at the breadcrumbs left behind, we can see maps stuck up on the wall, labelled and marked with crosses and lines around the two areas we play in. When you turn to the one at the far right, we see a labelled metro station. The scribbles point out certain things like, check this area, check this entrance, and might hide supplies. We can also see a big skull, which may be a GRE anomaly. Looking at the black and white map, along with this unknown metro station, it's clear that this is, drumroll please, actually no, that's overused, trumpet solo please, Elysium. Although I think you knew that was coming. There's no streets in the game with these names, and what do we know is one of the biggest, most elusive pieces of cut content in all of this franchise? Come on, they had an entire section of the game dedicated to the cut map. This area and its map is too detailed to just be tucked away at the bottom that nobody's going to. I also want to note here, I've checked the Holy Bible of Dying Light 2 cut content research, the unofficial cut content doc, and haven't found any direct reference to this. Which means if there was any scripts or quests or concepts for any mission or lead towards Elysium, other than this room, it's been swept clean. Whatever reason this area needed to be checked, it's gonna remain a mystery. Lost Canyon Road. Speaking of mysteries, another place that I find to be eyebrow raising is a Lost Canyon Road tucked out of bounds. It's liminal and has some length to it. Odd. At the end, a lake of what looks like blood looks back at you. What's this doing out of bounds where you probably aren't gonna see it? Was this road and blood lake originally supposed to be a part of some extension of the central loop map? It feels too carefully constructed, like it got stopped halfway through and accidentally left here in a rush, or a simple oversight. Kinda like the invisible dart enemy. If I'm right, and it was supposed to be an extension, I wonder what would have been beyond the canyon road. Smoke grenades. If this is something you know of, I feel like it's unlocked fun memories of lighting the Night Hunter up like a supernova, or your eye is twitching profusely because you got lit up like a supernova. And if you have no idea what this is, yeah, I was right there with you. I completely forgot these were in the game until doing this Iceberg chart. You'd be forgiven for not knowing though. In a single save, you can only ever get 2, and the only way to obtain them is from the train robbery mission from our favourite air fryer owners, Tolga and Fatine. They can be found sat in a military crate, and they act as basically bigger flares. They last a lot longer too, with cracked range, making them pure Night Hunter repellent. I believe these were supposed to serve a bigger purpose overall, but were cut, with these two being all that remained of them. Unless, of course, you hit up that one mate that's a duplication wizard. Volatile face foreshadow. I have no clue if this is intentional or not, but I love shit like this. During the prologue for Dying Light 1, where we have to investigate the 13th floor, Crane finds this.
Jesus. How many people died here?
It's a morbid scene on the surface. However, if you focus, the seat of the pram heavily resembles a volatile's face, almost like it's foreshadowing the nighttime horrors. If this is accidental, it's crazy. If it's not, the devs are crazy for putting this in, and me, as well as 99% of people no doubt, never noticing this. Inhibitors corrupt your mind. They're a strange thing in Dying Light 2. They make no sense at all. Sometimes when Aiden takes one, he'll begin spazzing out. Clearly the virus is sinking its claws deeper into him because of them. And it's actually because these things have a dangerous blend of antizin and THV gen mod, which in layman's is the stuff used in the yellow dust during Black Monday. And Aiden is out here getting all that shit up in his grill. Remember, this is the stuff that if you set foot on for like 10 seconds, you get gassed out. As the game goes on and more inhibitors are collected, his outbursts get worse and worse. And I think after the events of Dying Light 2 and years into the future, he's probably not gonna stay human.
Say that again?
Many claim this to be Aiden's virus simply progressing over time, but I think the inhibitors are slowly gonna rot Aiden's mind, to the point where the antizin probably won't be doing much to help him anymore. So morbidly, every single inhibitor you take may just be another nail in Aiden's coffin. Zombies are looking for the mother. The following shows a lot of imagery of the mother as a sunbound goddess, always being represented by the sun as their guiding light. There are drawings of the mother with the beaming ball of fire behind her, and in the cult, they worship these things to no end, and the path to enlightenment they represent. The Haran virus can evolve to where we see someone like her, a sentient volatile capable of things like telepathy, powers beyond our understanding. And this theory goes much further down the whole whimsical, witchcraft, magic-y type stuff. It could be that the real mother is maybe some kind of actual god, and this religion in Haran is actually very real. And so going down that line of thinking, I can't help but find a connection with the way zombies will sometimes stare at the sun as it sets, and is at its most noticeable. Do they feel some kind of instinctive connection to the mother somewhere in their decaying vessels when gazing upon it? Some sort sort of telepathic or maybe spiritual urge from her unknown presence to stop and, for a brief moment, connect with their higher being over a tantalizing landscape. I feel like this one's a bit difficult to explain, but if you get what I'm saying, then, you know, if you know, you know. Thinking about it definitely tripped me out though. Missing survivors. If one missing person case is at worst a cold one with no trail left, try however many this is. Outside the tower is a giant wall of survivors that have gone missing. Pictures of faces we'll never see and a desperate cry for help, or more like a memorial. The stories of these people simply can't be heard, and will most likely never be able to. Then there's the bigger questions that for now are such gaping holes in the Dying Light universe. Like whatever happened to Brecken and the rest of the tower that even put this missing person's wall up? Maybe they died, or found a way to keep going, but when we last saw them they were practically on their deathbeds, making Crane go to some countryside just to scrape together more antizin. Brecken is the most elusive, although we don't 100% know the fates of people like Troy, Dr. Lena and Ezgi. Someone else has been just as curious as us though, as in the Dying Light 2 Bazaar there's also a missing persons wall, and on it we see pictures of Ezgi, Tolga and Fatine, Brecken, Lena and Alfie. There's no doubt in my mind that this was our second favourite Spike who put these up. Speaking of, we at least do know what happened with him. He became a pilgrim, but even before that, we know that he rounds people up from Haran, and I'm guessing the tower, and leads them out of the place, and took up the mantle as a leader. How he became a pilgrim though, and got to where he was in the Dying Light 2 prologue, and the matter of what happened to all the survivors he led is up for debate. The most we have for Brecken is a potential letter from him we get in the Going Postal mission in the following. While scurrying around in the mail room, you'll be able to find a random letter which talks about how he's living in a constant state of fear and misery, how Crane gave people false hope, but he can't bear such a burden and hasn't followed. Signed by no name, just B. Looks to me like he became so jaded, pun intended, and distraught with how badly the tower has gotten, that he abandoned his ship, went his own way, and is contemplating if these days are truly worth it anymore. Whatever the case with these survivors, especially our Brecky boy, hopefully the beast has some of those answers we're looking for. Tree of Life virus. This is a certified favourite of mine on this Iceberg chart. I find it really interesting. And it's our final entry. There's a strange theory I've seen that's kinda skewed the way I see the Haran virus and its effects on people. Not the zombification of humans, but the stages that happened to them before that. There's a book written by famous sci-fi writer Larry Niven called Protector that uses a concept called the Tree of Life virus that, once infecting its host, begins to make them much more intelligent over time and eventually develop a strong primal urge to protect those around them and I guess fall into more Darwinist beliefs. The Haran virus might be a very similar concept and can explain the sometimes bizarre behaviour we see in some characters, mainly Crane, the Mother and Rise. Now to preface, Rise isn't infected, but looking at his intense and exhausting fixation on the Darwinism natural selection stuff, it could be that he actually was, and all that antizin he hoarded, he needed it more for just having a monopoly on trade, and was actually using some of it to stop himself from fully turning. Crane goes the opposite way. The virus is making him extremely protective and even efficient. His short amount of time in the quarantine zone, and the man he went into the countryside as, after all the events of the main story, is actually wild, and all of this happened whilst infected, all until he became the Night Hunter. Although losing himself, definitely became stronger and more agile. I mean, look at all the lore-accurate Crane memes showing how cracked this man is. Then there's the Mother, a being that is the final form of the virus. Highly intelligent, mercilessly deadly. Just not very pretty. She even calls it evolution. This idea of getting infected by this thing and it fine-tuning you in some messed up method. It completely twists the idea of the infection turning you into a mindless zombie, and instead, it's slowly turning you, and at the end, if the right mutations happen, becoming a fearless, dangerously smart hunter. A process we're seeing slowly corrupting certain characters' minds, as they slowly become the ultimate apex predator. Now we're back at the surface once again, another iceberg cleared. This time on a different game. I know, crazy right? After 6 parts of the Call of Duty Zombies series, I think a switch up is definitely needed before I get back to work on them. I've had a Dying Light Iceberg requested for a while now, and I love the franchise so much, I feel like it would have been a sin not to do this. And I think it turned out well. I think we could do a part 2 of this, or I could move on to different icebergs because people seem to enjoy icebergs still, which I'm glad about because the format is really fun to make and to watch. But if you want, I could do some other games too, like maybe Red Dead Redemption, Resident Evil, Cyberpunk. There's some really cool ideas there that we could have so much fun with, but I think half of that depends on how well this video does. Dying Light has so much cool shit to just dive into, so I think it's made it perfect for an iceberg. Some of my favourites had to have been the Tree of Life virus for one. I love that concept. The Dead Girl in Water is a really good mystery and was fun to investigate. I also loved touching on Elysium whenever that came up because it's such a ever-expanding mystery. There's so much surrounding it, and I can't help but feel intrigued every time I'm researching it or writing about it or watching videos about it. Oh, and Aiden getting punched? Mwah, chef's kiss of an entry. Perfect. Easily one of the silliest here. And if you don't mind me shilling just for a second, look, if no one's gonna sponsor me, I'm gonna sponsor myself. Check out this My Side video I did. It's kind of like a Horrors of video where I go into this game and pick apart why it's so scary, the secrets of it, the lore, the hidden meaning, and make my stupid jokes along the way. But YouTube seems to be keeping this on a leash, not really pushing it out like it does my other videos. But I can vouch for this video, and if you do want something else to watch from me that's probably my best work, or maybe you already like some of the other horrors type videos like Fallout and Call of Duty Zombies I've done, go give this a go. I think you'd enjoy it and I'd really appreciate it. But as always with these, I'm gonna leave this video here, but first off, if there's any other games you want icebergs of, or a part 2 of this or anything, please let me know in the comments. Secondly, if there's any corrections, anything you want to add, anything at all, or entries that you think would be good for another iceberg, also leave them down in the comments. I love the discussion for one, and seeing everyone's input can be really good and add a lot to the videos too. So I better see you type in some stuff down there, at least answer one of those 2 things. But if you enjoyed, be sure to smash that like button, comment your thoughts and your favourite entry down below. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, you won't regret it, and turn on the notification bell too to stay notified whenever I upload a video. Consider becoming a channel member too. I like to post a bit of bonus content on there whenever I feel like it, and it is direct support to me that really helps this channel out and keeps the lights on. And lights are kind of important because the volatiles will come and clap my cheeks if not. Thank you so much for watching, good night, and good luck.